Hello and welcome to Where the Living Room Used to Be, a podcast about Rhode Island's music scene. RI5 with Ben Shaw. What is or was your favorite Rhode Island record store and why?
So I think one thing about listening to a lot of these RI5s and listening to a lot of the podcasts in general, everybody seems to have grown up on the mainland of Rhode Island. I don't know. There's not a lot of people that grew up on Aquidneck Island.
Yeah. Well, Gail from Belly. But a lot of it, is from Providence or. Yeah,
exactly. Kinda. So what I'm going to do with my RI5 is I got to say it's very Aquidneck Island specific. So because, when you grow up on the island, you just kind of tend to stay on there for a lot of time. But so I would say my favorite record store was Music Box down in Newport.
Cool.
Just because they had a big selection. It was like the way they had their shelf set up was so cool. A lot of like weird albums that I just wouldn't find other places. Like they had a big jazz section, big like Celtic section. They had like a good hip hop section, classical music. The CDs were cheap, so I could buy a bunch. I mean, I have way too many CDs, but because of that place. And it is still the only place that has ever sold a CD of mine, because they would take local CDs. And when I was playing with Milk Bread, I took our first EP and I just gave them a stack. I'm like, do you guys take these? And they're like, yeah,
oh,
sure.
That's cool.
Whatever, we'll sell them. They were just so cool like that. Like, yeah, I mean, I would drop, $25-$50 every time I went in there. So I'm sure they're like, yeah, man, whatever you want.
Yeah. If you keep coming back, we're good. Yeah.
We'll sell you that weird deep cut.
And where was that located? I'm actually not familiar with that store. And how long was it around? Yeah. Is it still around, and I'm just not aware of it? Or
no, unfortunately, it's not. It's now they have a Life is Good store at Music Box is what they call it. But
okay,
it was on Thames Street. It was on Upper Thames Street.
Okay,
right near the Brick Marketplace. There's Brick Alley. There's the Brick Alley pub, and then you kind of walk down, and it's in that like little cobblestone part of Newport, and it's right on the left if you're driving by.
That's cool.
It was. I mean, and that was like it was either that or there was like a Strawberries on the island that my brother used to work at, which is how he got into like underground hip hop. Like Sage, actually, he used to be a big fan of Sage, I think. So
nice.
So shout out to Sage Francis, but yeah, it was Music Box was just like the place. Like we didn't go to Newport a lot, but then later in life I started, when I had a car I could go down, and I would just dump all my dishwashing money into CDs, man. Oh
yeah, cool. What is your favorite drink tied to Rhode Island?
All right, this one's tough, James. You got a lot of contenders here.
Cool.
But I came up with the perfect solution because I love coffee milk, despite I have a bone to pick with your buddies in Road Rash, the podcast you turned on.
To about John
the Rhode Island
stuff. Yeah.
Next time you talk to any of the Johns, you tell them that Ben Shaw has a problem with what they said about coffee milk. They said it's a drink for kids. It's a drink for children. I am a grown man. I have self-respect, and I love coffee milk.
All right.
So I love coffee milk, but I love Awful Waffles with Newport. And so it's like, I'm like, how do I get everything that I want out of life? How can I have my cake and eat it too? We were at Newport Creamery. We're in line, and this lady orders a coffee Awful Waffle with chocolate jimmies. I'm like, wow, motherfucker, you broke it. You just, you did it. You've done it. You broke the code. And so that right there to me is like, that is a perfect, because I love coffee milk. I love Awful Waffles. Chocolate jimmies are great. So that I would say probably that. And then there's also like, I love Gansett. Like, I know that's like the just like total like cheap beer, but like, come on, it's Gansett. It's great. But road trip right now, Newport Brewing Company's Road Trip is probably my favorite beer right now. It used to be Revival Double Black IPA, but then they discontinued it. I always used to say Revival Double Black tasted like motor oil and used cigarettes, but goddamn was it good. It was so good. So
I don't know what a used cigarette is, but
yeah. It's just like a smoked, just like a
cigarette. All right.
Right. Like it's like you have you have like a little bit left on the filter. Like it's just enough to like somebody was like, I have this can of motor oil sitting here. Let me put this cigarette out.
Yeah, I got you. But, what is your favorite place in Rhode Island? Like, where do you like to hang out?
Like I said, I grew up on Aquidneck Island, and Portsmouth is great, but it just kind of could be anywhere town. It's nothing. But when I was younger, like we didn't really go out to like Providence or anything. So as I grow older, I have a real love for Providence and the music scene and appreciation of that. As I get, spend more time there, I really start to love it. But Newport just remains, I think, one of my favorite places because it's got great restaurants. It's just so beautiful walking around there at night. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned on one of our other segments, we recently moved to Warwick. Literally, like last weekend was our move date, and prior to that, we lived in Newport for 7 years, and it was great because we got to go down to the restaurants and like little bookstores and stuff, and there was music happening. I loved the gigging there. I love playing at like Poor Judgment. And then there's great beaches. There's good surfing. We started surfing a couple of years ago, and that was like fun to do. And
that's cool.
It's just such a beautiful place to just like spend a day. You can go around Ocean Drive, or I don't know. There's just so much to it that I felt silly saying it because it's like, okay, he's from the island. Of course he's going to say Newport, but I don't know, man. Like nothing beats it. Nothing beats it.
Mm-hmm. No, I dig it. That's cool. What is your favorite Rhode Island pizza?
I remember texting you about this a while ago, saying that the problem I have with pizzas, I think my relationship to pizza is different. The people on the island, their relationship to pizza, at least as far as I've seen, is different than the mainland because we have like 20 pizza shops on the island. There's tons of pizza. But when I ask people this pizza question here, like people who live in Pawtucket or Providence or Cranston, boom, they have an answer immediately. And they have reasons. They have like a family history of why it's this, why it's Nice Slice or Caserta or whatever it is. Yeah. But on the island, it's just like, it's a thing, but it's not a big thing. What I will say though is, so thinking about this, I was like, okay, well, what is my relationship to pizza on the island? And there's two places. One is I used to wash dishes at this place called the Valley Inn. And it's this, you wouldn't know that it's open because it's one of these old school places. But my friend Rich was my best friend, and it was his family's restaurant. And so I needed a job. They let me have it. And his grandma used to cook everything. She's an Italian woman, like came over from like Mussolini, Italy. Basically, it's like her and her husband. And oh my God, this pizza is the best pizza. It's the meat sauce that she used to make. It was like great. It was just awesome. It's all about the sauce with the Valley Inn pizza, but it's a great deal. I'd say go get that. But also West Main pizza, because we used to live in the neighborhood where my parents are. I had a buddy, John, who lived in a neighborhood kind of below that. And I used to go to John's house and we would walk to West Main because he lived like right in the neighborhood behind it.
Okay.
And so we would hang out in the corner booth for hours just eating. And West Main's cool because it's a wheat crust. It's like a honey wheat kind of crust. So it's different. It's thicker. And like, it's just a different kind of pizza than you get anywhere else.
Uh-huh.
And then in high school, after big band practice, we'd go to Newport, we'd go to West Main Pizza, and we'd hang out there for hours. And it was like the first time I had ever like hung out, like post gig, post rehearsal with a bunch of musicians. And so it's kind of like it kind of turned me on to that. So West Maine's like where a lot of that like formative year kind of stuff happened.
Yeah,
and plus the pizza's banging.
That's cool.
So
was bakery pizza prevalent on Aquidneck Island, or is that even more hyper regional to just the Providence, Cranston, Pawtucket?
No,
like could you get pizza strips?
Pizza. Yeah, you get the pizza strip. But again, my parents, my parents were both Navy brats, so they don't have accents. They're not from Rhode Island. Like they're not from Rhode Island, really. You just wouldn't know. So they don't really. They're not tied to like the region like a lot of Rhode Islanders are.
Yeah.
And so it was just all these like weird little things about that weren't really a big deal in my house. So yeah, we didn't really do party pizza or pizza strips or anything like that.
Yeah.
And my mom doesn't eat seafood. She doesn't like seafood. So we like wouldn't get stuffies or anything. It was just a wholly different thing. So
yeah.
It was only as I like kind of grew up and just like kind of got into my own mess that I like really discovered all that like pizza strip stuff.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
And last question for you. What is your favorite event that takes place in Rhode Island?
This was like the easiest thing because there are a lot of really great events that I've learned about from this podcast because people have like, oh, it's this, and this. And I think my answer is a little bit more typical because of, it's of what it is, but it would have to be, there's no other thing I could pick than the Newport festivals. The jazz and the folk festivals, both of them. Cause I've been going to these festivals for a little over half my life now. And they've always kind of been omnipresent in my life, even when I didn't really realize they were. Cause where my parents live, they kind of live at like the top of like one of the highest parts in Portsmouth. And so they kind of like have this, the neighborhood kind of like overlooks the bay a little bit. Like you can see it. And every summer when I was young, I remember there would always like once a year be the like weird booming sound. It felt like music was coming from somewhere. I couldn't figure it out. And then one day my dad told me, it's like, oh, that's the Newport Folk and Jazz Festivals.
Oh, okay.
I was like, wait, what? There's these, again, I just didn't know. And like, there's these big festivals that happen in Newport. And he's like, yeah. And so I looked it up and I'm like, oh my God, these are like the most historic things. I listened to like Duke Ellington's record and then like just heard about like Bob Dylan going electric and all this stuff. It's like music history happened in Newport. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so I finally got a chance through Scouts. I knew this woman. I was in Scouts with this kid, Carl, and his mom, Mrs. Magner, Peggy. She had an in with one of the vendors at the Newport Folk and Jazz Festivals. So she was like, she knew I was a good kid. I was going to be a hard worker. Like all it was like selling water at a cart, but it was parts of the main stage at the festival. So she's like, you want to do that? Like you just sit out in the hot sun and you sell water and you sell like soda to people, but you get to listen to the music. And I was like, fuck yeah, sign me up. I don't care how long I got to be there. I would pay to do this. And so I started working on this water cart and I would start going to the jazz festival. And then the following year, they let me also do the folk festival. It was paid. So that was nice, but I also got to see like these huge acts. Like I got to see
rad.
Wynton Marsalis. I got to see, oh my God, there's so many people that I'm going to forget that like the Carolina Chocolate Drops. There's, it's like all these weird like folk bands. And then like the Black Crows would be there. And then I started developing such a love for it, like both festivals, because it was again, this sort of meeting of my desire of what I wanted my music to be. I want my music to be sort of a little bit like if you went to the folk festival one weekend and the jazz festival, but if you went to the folk and jazz festival, they just happen to be on the same weekend happening at the same time. That's kind of what I want my music to be, is like this meeting of the two. So ever since then, I just have gone every year. And at a certain point I was like, I need to see the other stages. I just started buying tickets and going rather than like getting paid to go.
Yeah.
And then Motif lets me go and cover the jazz festival. So it's like, I get a great excuse 2 weekends out of the year to go see the greatest music, be completely inspired, see people that I love. I've been able to see, I got to see Sonny Rollins, Sonny Rollins was the reason I started playing saxophone, because I like really started taking saxophone seriously. I mean, my first like interaction with the saxophone as a solo instrument was Kenny G's Christmas music. But like when I started taking lessons on Saxophone Colossus was like the album. Yeah. I was just like, oh my God, what is this? And so I got to see Sonny play. I've gotten to see John Prine play. The one time I've gotten to see him play, oh my God, 2017. And we walked down the aisle to his song, In Spite of Ourselves. I should say we walked down and do an instrumental version, because if you ever heard In Spite of Yourselves, there were some like not really like grandparent or cousin appropriate lyrics. It's a silly song, but like, and to see him play it and to hold my wife on the lawn as John Prine played In Spite of Ourselves, like it's those moments that I've been given at the festivals where I've just been utterly inspired and destroyed and built up again, and like they exist as a part of my being in a way that no other kind of musical event ever has and ever will, just ever could. So it has to be the connection that I feel with the Newport festivals. Both of them are just so central to my core as a musician and a person that there's no other thing that I could ever possibly pick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a gift that we have them here in Rhode Island, and it's done so much to, help bring attention to Rhode Island as a place for music. And it's even just been great to see what has happened over the last, I'd say a couple of years where, John and the guys in Deer Tick have, helped to shine a light on Rhode Island bands as well. So it isn't just these international stars that you're talking about, but just, the people that are coming up and, busking stage with, Dan Blakesley and stuff like that has just been really cool. And it's just great what has happened with the Newport festivals and the, expansion of all of that stuff. So, and
they are not flawless by any means. They are human. They are working. They have a lot that they could do in a lot of places to go, but they really do a great job of community, of building a community of musicians that, I mean, music lovers and people that go there and just for a couple of days are just family in this weird, disparate family from all walks of life. And it's just great, man. That's awesome. Someday that is my big goal is weirdly enough, one of, like, again, embarrassingly enough for you, one of my big goals, honestly, was to do the Where the Living Room Used to Be podcast. Wow, I've wanted to do this for a long. I consider this a big goal of mine. So thank you. And I'm serious about that. I feel like I keep fanboying on you, but it was really cool to do this. But the Newport Folk Fest, man, is like, that is my one like dream. That is like what keeps me waking up in the morning. And I just think about, so I do this kind of embarrassing thing. When we lived in Newport, we used to go down and just walk around the festival field, or if I had a day off, I would take the day off and I would just go down to the fort. I'd go down to Fort Adams and I'd walk around, and I kind of know, I'm not sure, but I know exactly where the harbor stage sits. And I kind of know exactly where they usually have the main mic if it's a solo musician or any band. And so I kind of know where that is. And what I'll do is, if no one's around, I just kind of go up and I just stand in that spot and I just look out at what I would see. And I just kind of close my eyes and try to envision what it would be what it would sound like to just say, hi, my name's Ben Shaw. I was born in Newport. I've always loved the Newport folk festivals. And I'm just so happy to be here. Here we go. And to just play. So I do that for myself every once in a while. But so yeah.
That's great, man. No.
Weird, but great.
No. I mean, it's cool to visualize that stuff. And I think it's important to have goals. And I think that it's, rooted in a real piece of your own development and something that, goes beyond like, I don't know what else could be equivalent to something that would be like, well, I want to play Lollapalooza because I want to be huge or something. It's like, at least I'm not hearing it in that way. It's like this is a festival that has directly impacted you as a songwriter and as a composer and all of these other, jazz player. Like all of these things are like deeply ingrained in who you are. And yes, it can mean something to do that. I mean, I've had that type of, like, I've got to play at Cat's Cradle in North Carolina, and that's like where Superchunk plays all their shows. So I'm like,
oh dude, yeah,
this is the stage that Superchunk plays on, and it's not the biggest deal, but I'm like, this is pretty cool playing in front of like hundreds of people that like, this is where Merge Records is, and this is what's happening with that kind of stuff. And
dude, it means something. It just that's part of you. Yeah.
So it can just be a part of our musical journey, and I wish you the best. Keep doing what you're doing to get there.
I mean, well, it's like with that, like the whole idea of like dreams and everything. It's like, I'd love to play Lollapalooza, sure. But to be honest, I've kind of reached a point in my musical life where, like, when I think about my goals and everything, it used to be what it was. But now I just think, like, if I could just make a living, that's like, I think that's as good as you can hope for in music now. I think if you can just make a decent living, you can provide for yourself or your family or whatever off of music. Oh my God. Like that's better than playing Madison Square Garden. If I could do that. And it's like, so I think about that stuff and like playing the festivals and like, if I could just play like little theaters and stuff, and even that's asking a lot, but I don't need a lot of this stuff. And that's kind of what is fun about the RI5 is like, it kind of gives me an appreciation for Rhode Island, because it's like, there's a good life that you can make here. Like Rhode Island's a nice place, and I would love a life where we live here. I go out and I make music, and I come back and I just have a normal small life here. I would be fine with that. I just want to make music, and it's like that's part of it. So if it's like playing those shows mean a lot, like the playing in that place in North Carolina mean a lot, because it resonates with you. It resonates within you. It's important. And that's better to me, being able to do those and play those situations than playing like these huge shows. I would love to play arenas and get paid the kind of money to play arenas. Let me just say that. But it's important to recognize that it's like you can have an appreciation for those small goals and have that mean a lot to you, and that's okay. Because I'd rather be happy with that than be pissed off, but traveling the world hitting, stadiums. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Ben. It's been incredible to get to talk to you about everything, but definitely cool to kind of just talk Rhode Island and get that perspective. It is a unique one that I haven't really spoken to too many people from Aquidneck Island. So just kind of looking at it through the lens of someone from the islands of Rhode Island. It's great. So
yeah, man, I really appreciate like the RI5, because it actually gave me a different perspective on my hometown and the place we live, because Rhode Island is small. It can be easy to kind of like hate where you grew up with. And I went through that for a lot of years, but there's a lot I've found that I love about this state and that I really appreciate. And some of that comes from like listening to other people appreciate it. So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks.